This is Optimal Finance Daily, episode 519, The Right Way and Wrong Way to Lend Money to Family and Friends, Part 2, by J.D. Roth of GetRichSlowly.org. And I'm Dan, the guy who reads to you from some of the best blogs on personal finance, and as of a few weeks ago, business too. You can hear me narrate articles all about management, entrepreneurship, freelancing, productivity, creativity, marketing, social media, and a lot more on the podcast Optimal Business Daily. That's a newer show that I took on just a couple of weeks ago. But for this show, today is a continuation from yesterday, and if you're new here or skipping around, it would be best to hear yesterday's episode first. Before we get to that, I want to thank ZipRecruiter for their support of this podcast. Are you hiring? Because ZipRecruiter has revolutionized how you do it. Their technology identifies people with the right experience, then invites them to apply to your job. They find great candidates for you. So try it for free today at ziprecruiter.com/OFD. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Now let's get right to part 2 of this post as we continue optimizing your life. The Right Way and Wrong Way to Lend Money to Family and Friends, Part 2, by J.D. Roth of GetRichSlowly.org. The right way to lend money to family and friends. When a friend or family member asks to borrow money, your first inclination is probably to help, but many people have learned the hard way that friendships and finances make a poor mix. My interaction with Joe is a typical example. Not all loans between family and friends end in disaster, of course. In fact, although I've never been able to find stats on the subject, I'd be willing to wager that most loans go smoothly. But the potential for trouble is so great that you should think twice before lending or borrowing money. How would it affect your finances and your friendship? Even when things do go right, the situation can get awkward. For instance, in 2011, I made a large loan to a friend for a business project. That project fizzled. For the past 7 years, my friend has always made his payments on time, but he's had a tough time paying down the principal. For most of the life of the loan, he's made interest-only payments. This is a good deal for me, but not for him. My friend and I have maintained a good relationship, but it would be even better without the money situation looming over our heads. You can save yourself a lot of grief by knowing in advance what you'll do when somebody asks to borrow from you. Some people decide they'll never make personal loans. If they're asked, they say something like, "Sorry, but it's my policy never to lend money to people I know." If you think this is too harsh, you can offer to help in some other way. Most of the time, you're probably better off saying no than putting yourself in a position where you have to hound a friend for money, as I've had to do with Joe. Despite these warnings, some of you will be tempted to lend money. If you do, follow these rules. You'll be glad you did. Number 1, discuss other options. Are there other ways to help? Sometimes people think money is the only way to deal with problems when there are actually other ways to offer assistance. Figure out what the root problem is and see if there are other ways to help solve it without donating dollars. 2, lend only the amount you can afford to lose. You may never see the money again, so don't put your own financial well-being on the line for your cousin Bob. Make sure your own situation is solid before you lend money. In my case, losing the $800 Joe owes me does hurt, but it doesn't change my life trajectory. 3, be clear about your expectations. Draw up a payment plan. You can use the online calculator at bankrate.com to create a loan schedule and discuss what will happen if something goes wrong. 4, get it in writing. At lawdepot.com, you can fill out a web form, and for $15, you get a complete promissory note. There's also a free sample template at expertlaw.com. When I loaned money to my friend for his business project, we had an actual written contract. 5, deal with problems right away. You may feel you're being kind by not sending a reminder that the payment is 30 days past due, but you're just setting yourself up for trouble. Let the borrower know you're keeping track. This is where I failed with Joe. I didn't like reminding him to pay, so I went radio silent for several months thinking he'd simply man up. He didn't. Here's another idea. If you can afford it, and if it seems appropriate, consider giving the money instead. That way there's no ickiness on either side. If you get paid back, great. If not, you can feel good about helping out a friend in need. And remember, it's always okay to politely refuse. After my disaster with Joe, for instance, I decided to do something different with my Timbers tickets during the second year I was on the road. I simply gave them to Chris, my ex-wife. I know she loves going to the games just as much as I do. "Do you mind if I share these?" she asked. She ended up distributing them to our mutual friends. I lost out on the cost of the tickets in 2016, but I got to save my seats, I avoided hassling anyone for money, and my friends got to enjoy the MLS champion Timbers in action. One last thing. At some point, you may be the one borrowing money from a friend or family member. You should do this only if you can't boost your income or tap an emergency fund. When you borrow, explain exactly why you need the money, put the deal in writing, and then stick to your word. Be proactive. Keeping your word is the most important part. That means repaying the loan as promised, or sooner if possible. Take this as seriously as you would any other financial obligation. In fact, take it more seriously. If you don't pay the bank back, you'll damage your credit score. But if you don't pay back a friend, you'll damage that friendship and your reputation. You don't want to end up like me and Joe. You just listened to part 2 of the post titled The Right Way and Wrong Way to Lend Money to Family and Friends by J.D. Roth of GetRichSlowly.org. And thanks again to ZipRecruiter for sponsoring this episode. Are you hiring? Every business needs great people and a better way to find them too. Something better than posting your job online and just praying for the right people to see it. ZipRecruiter knew there was a smarter way, so they built a platform that finds the right job candidates for you. ZipRecruiter learns what you're looking for, identifies people with the right experience, then invites them to apply to your job. These invitations have revolutionized how you find your next hire. In fact, 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. And ZipRecruiter doesn't stop there. They even spotlight the strongest applications you receive so you never miss a great match. The right candidates are out there. ZipRecruiter is how you find them. And right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/OFD. That's ZipRecruiter.com/OFD. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And before we go, one last time, I have taken over the hosting duties for one of our newest shows in our podcast network, that is Optimal Business Daily. You can hear me narrate from a bunch of popular business bloggers every day of the week. Lee and Justin were the hosts of that show for 300 episodes, and they just recently passed it along to me. So if you enjoy this show, I'm pretty confident you're going to like that one too. Topics over at Optimal Business Daily include freelancing, entrepreneurship, management, marketing, productivity, and more. Again, that's Optimal Business Daily, and you can subscribe for free in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and pretty much any podcast app. And that'll do it for me here today. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow where your optimal life awaits.